unfortunately, with a lot of things that the Lord provides, we misuse it. So on the other side of the culture was the sinful behavior that followed it. Especially when I was just on the bottom of this, trying to figure it out, I was like, man, as you elevate my platform, like, just keep me in this humble state, and may my hands always be open. Because I learned, like, if your hands are open, like, you leave room to receive and also give.
Use Christian hip hop to bring people together, and there's a beautiful, there's something beautiful that happens when the gospel is shared there. So you do your events, and you're just meeting a need, right? Because you know, Jesus met people's needs one way. He fed them, fed people. He obviously gave them the gospel to save their soul.
Most events was hosted by churches, youth ministers, pastors, and as much as their heart was in the right place, their experience of hosting events wasn't their expertise. They want to get everybody together so they can preach the word. That's what the minister's great at. But as far as the event planning part, like, they're gonna give it their best effort.
Real interviews, real guests, no actors. Real talk, get prepared for Free Factor.
What's going on? Scott DeVore here, aka Free. This is the Free Factor podcast. We are live on location in Palm Bay, Melbourne.
Yes, sir.
Central Florida, on the East Coast. I got the man himself, DJ Bryce G.
What's up, man?
Joyful Noize. This guy has been making a movement in Christian hip hop, going on a couple years now.
Yeah.
We'd love to kind of bring out the story, kind of the origin, just on Bryce G, and then the Joyful Noize, the experience. I remember when I first caught word of you, it was a crazy story. You were actually in Jacksonville doing an event, and we had an overlapping of trying to book an event on the same day. You had no idea this was happening. It was December 2023, and wasn't familiar with you or the Joyful Noize or anything. You were doing a show with Mike Teasy. And so, just to make a long story short, because this isn't about me, it's about you, I was a little upset because they basically said, well, they signed a contract, and we thought that someone else booked. You thought you were booked in there, but it was actually Bryce G's event. So you had your event booked. Didn't know anything about Bryce G. Didn't know anything about the story, and I was a little upset, right?
Yeah.
So I came in as a hater. I actually showed up at your event. I dropped my flyers down because I had already changed my date. I may even ran into you.
Probably.
And then slowly I started hearing your name. I know you did a great event there from what I heard. It was a crazy thunderstorm that night.
It was crazy.
But then I started to see your content, your name, and I started following you. I'm like, oh my goodness. Because my event that I did, I ended up rescheduling it for a month later. It was not, a Joyful Noize exactly type event, but it was artists, it was boiler room DJ sets. I'm like, this is exactly the vibe that I wanted with an event. And man, I just became a fan from afar. And then we got connected by someone, I think Dion connected us where we had a phone call.
Shout out Dion, man.
But man, I just wanted to have you kind of fill in like who Bryce G is, on kind of the origin of you becoming, putting your stamp on, your name as DJ Bryce G, putting it out there, because I know coming up with a name is important. And then how the Joyful Noize experience and Joyful Noize events all came about.
Most definitely. First off, it's an honor to be here, and I do remember that story, and it's a trip how full circle moments happen. Because I remember them announcing your event at the event, and I was like, that sounds cool. Like DJ, boiler room style. You don't just hear that. Like you got to know about boiler room style DJing to know. And I was like, okay, but I didn't know the backstory like you said. But yeah, man, it's been a journey, I'll say the least. But for me, I consider myself a celebration expert. Usually when I say DJ, a few things come to mind. Depends on your upbringing. But for me, the journey of DJing started with just celebrations and parties. I come from the Bay Area, California. And the Bay Area culture is like huge on parties, and DJs too. Like I was raised around like radio mixes that were top tier, but I didn't know it because it was just normal to me. And as far as the music, the culture out there, everything was just super unique and just very colorful, and I just loved it. I loved the music, I loved the dancing, I loved the community aspect, and this was before I even was seeking God. Like, it was just something about it that I felt the presence of the Lord. I just didn't know it was him. And unfortunately, with a lot of things that the Lord provides, we misuse it. So on the other side of the culture was the sinful behavior that followed it, from the drugs, the alcohol, the promiscuity that all came out of the movement and the culture of the Bay Area, which was considered normal around that time for me, because I wasn't seeking God at that time, growing up, and I was just hooping. But there was something with music I just always kept around me. I was in the LimeWire era, so I was moving mixtapes in middle school through the LimeWire downloads, and that was kind of my first introduction to DJing, because I would make these very elaborate mixes for my friends and sell them for $10, and people was rocking with it, so I kept doing it, and I went on to high school to hoop, like serious ball. Shout out Salesian, like we was able to win state championships, all that stuff.
Nice.
But that took my mind off of the music a little bit, because even then I was making warm-up mixes for my team. And it was just kind of this like quiet relationship I had with music that naturally came out in my life, from the mixtapes to the warm-up mixes to even my commutes to school. It was like our commute from Vallejo to Richmond, the Richmond area. And I would always have good mixes, put together so that I could get through the drive. Or I used to drive to LA, which, if you know, being from LA, like the Bay Area to LA is like 7 hours for those who don't know. So I would have mixes put together for that. So I was always curating. And but then when I got to college, that's when I really got introduced to like DJing, because I saw college DJs doing the house parties, doing events on school grounds. Hampton University, shout out Hampton University. It was
I've been there a few times.
Yeah, it was a good start to everything I was doing, and learning that, this is actually a profession. Like, I'm seeing DJs that are doing this full time. There was a DJ there named DJ Audio. He was a full-time 5-year MBA student, but he was paying for college with his DJing. I was like, dang, I didn't know nothing about this. So I picked up a little controller myself, was doing house parties, and then continued on. But when I gave my life to Christ, which there's stories within stories, but when I dropped out of college because I couldn't afford it, but two, I was seeking for a purpose. And I felt like it was too expensive to find purpose in college at that moment, because I'm like, I don't know why I'm here. And when I do the math, by the time I figure out why I'm here, I'm going to be $100,000 in debt. So I was like, let me stop. I stopped like in the middle of the semester and would just go to the library and kind of figure out like, what do I need? Like, why am I here? What am I trying to do in my life? And I knew music at that time became like more of a exciting endeavor for me, because I wasn't hooping anymore. And I was like, man, I want to be a full-time musician, but I don't think it's the most popular thing to do. So I don't know if it'll be right. But the Lord intercepted me, in the midst of my endeavors with entrepreneurship. I was also in like, I was doing Amway. I was in my sales bag. And I was also trying to DJ and do music, but the Lord's like, this dude needs to just sit down and look at the word. And I had a friend, his name's Horace. He bumped into me at the library, just said, hey, if you ever want to study the word, like, let me know. And I didn't let him know. I let him know that I had an Amway presentation for him. And he was like, cool. I sat down and shared with him what I was doing with my business. And he was like, oh, that's cool. Let me share with you the gospel. And I was like, I want that, actually. And I decided, like, I need Jesus for sure. This is what I was looking for. When I saw the words that Jesus was displaying, and his call to follow him, I was like, yeah, I'm here. Yeah. But when I made that decision, there was more that came with it. Surrendering everything that I knew, my dreams, my aspirations, to him. That was when it got scary. But I have enough faith to say, all right, God, like, I'll give that up too. My dreams of music, business, whatever I have, like, you got it. And long story short with that, he just exchanged all those desires that I had with a godly ambition. I was DJing for my church, serving at my campus ministry, and I saw that with my skills with music, I can bring out an audience. They would hear the music bumping, from our room or from the park if we're doing an outdoor event. And they would come out. And at that time, I was just like, man, I just gave my life to Christ. I don't got a lot of music. I need more because they're going to keep coming. And that's when I discovered Christian hip hop. First artist that I really like caught on to was Andy Mineo and the Saturday morning cartoons. That was the perfect introduction for me because he was remixing all the hits that I knew. And I was like, yo, this is fire. But, man, I continued on. That was 2013. So, like I said, there's stories within stories. But that's how the DJ journey began. Joyful Noize came about because I was constantly searching after ways to reach the people that I knew. I was serving in the youth ministry, and a lot of times the teens didn't have much to do on the weekends. So I was always thinking, like, what's the way to bridge the gap, you know? And I noticed it was the same thing for my young professional friends. Nobody had plans on the weekends besides a game night at a friend's house or if your church had a devotional event on a Friday night. So I was just like, man, like, we got to do something. And this is a whirlwind of stories, but I was in Virginia serving the youth ministry, and then I moved up to Maryland for youth ministry to be an intern, and I was around DC, and DC had such an interesting subculture as far as events and parties. I just naturally gravitated towards it, whether it was Christian or not. I was just like, it's just very inviting, no matter who you were, Christian, whatever. Like, they were like, cool, come on in. Like, you know, we respect your music, we respect who you are, but this is what we do. So I was just intrigued with that. And one day it clicked. I was at a April and Vista concert. One of my homies, they had a great concert. And I was thinking to myself, like, man, this is where all the young adults are at. Saturday night, linking up with their friends, escaping from their work week, just trying to vibe and let go. So that's where it was like, man, if I could create something for all of us just to come together, but the music is glorifying God, that'd be amazing. Fast forward to 2023, I get married with my wife, and, you know, I'm trying to figure out what I can do as a DJ to make a living for us because, you know, the expenses increase when you got another one in the home. And my gigs wasn't hitting. Like, I wasn't getting a lot of gigs because I made a decision around 2022. I wasn't going to play any more secular music. Like, I was the Christian DJ that would play clean music and play Christian music and have a few boundaries and standards, but still felt like I was playing both sides a little bit because that's what people will ask. Like, oh, it's a Christian wedding, but we like this song. Can you play the clean version? I'm like, sure. Like, but 2022, Caleb Gordon, he convicted me. He was like, if you're going to DJ for me, like, you can't endorse anything secular. Like, you have that conviction, and that reminded me of what I had when I first gave my life to Christ. And it also was like, man, this is a great opportunity. I don't want to fold. And I made that decision, like, yeah, I'm going to lock in. So around the time we got married, I got asked to DJ at the Ark, which was another Christian club. But this was the first one that really kind of sparked what we have going on. Shout out JD Rivers. He hit me and just said, man, I want to create a club atmosphere because in Atlanta, that's all people know. So I said, bet, I could do that. I did it, and I posted about it the day after, and that was the first viral Christian club video. And that's when I saw in the comment section, like, just everybody expressing, like, we need this in our city, we need this in our town. And, you know, after 3 events at the Ark, it was solidified, like, this is high demand for our culture, our community. And I can't travel to Atlanta every month because it's chaotic out there. Driving wise, like, and with my wife, she doesn't do that. Like, she's a small town girl. Melbourne, that's why we here. She loves it because it's quiet. So, Joyful Noize came about. I wanted to create a karaoke night first. It was based off of Psalm 100. It was a great time for people to just make a joyful noise, let their voice crack, have a good time, connect with others. And I got encouraged to just go for a full-on party. And we launched it September 2023 and haven't looked back since. I know I just gave a whole smorgasbord of stories, but that's like my DJing and my event, it's like a 12 years in the making process. So y'all bear with me as I try to condense the whole story.
Man,
but hopefully that made sense.
No, man, I love it, dude. That's amazing. I wanna touch back on a few things.
Yeah.
'Cause it's crazy that we have overlapping type of stories. I don't know if the time frames like overlapped. So I grew up, I lived in LA, but before then I was like a Maryland guy. I lived in the DMV as well. And what got me into DJing was listening to like Big Tigger, Easy Street, all the great DJs of Washington D.C., like the 5 o'clock traffic jam mix. I'd be listening to. I'm like, this is just the most amazing blend of mashing up music, and it was like, I loved it. I love mixed music. That's just like my thing. I was making mixtapes too, a little bit older than you, Napster, LimeWire, and all that, and selling them for $5. You're a better entrepreneur than me. You're selling them for 10. I was selling mine for $5.
They had nowhere else to go, so I had to supply and demand that mug.
I was a house party DJ in college, and I started to do like bigger gigs. I started to do like school dances, but man, I had like the most epic parties like for sororities, fraternities. So this is before my surrendering to the Lord. I love that you used the word surrendering, because I surrendered my life to the Lord in 2003. I was 23 years old. When I graduated college, I said, man, it's time to be a professional. I got to put the DJ thing down. And I thought that's what I needed to do to, become a successful...
To grow up, right?
Right, to grow up. Yeah, exactly. And I remember giving all of my gear, my turntables, I was using CDJs, I had crates and crates of music. Most of them were just burnt CDs, but I did have some originals, to one of my good buddies. So one of my good friends.
Came up.
His nickname was Fat Boy, so my nickname was Scott Free. So when we collectively DJ together, we were calling ourselves Fat Free Productions. So we had Fat Free Productions on lockdown, DJing epic parties, making mixtapes, and then retired from DJing, gave them all the gear. A few of my other friends, they all moved to Lauderdale. Like we discovered Lauderdale on spring break trips. I thought I was going to move there after college. Good thing I didn't, because who knows where my life would be. I did catch up with my friend and asked him, hey man, you still got all the DJ gear, the records? He's like, nah man, when I forget what hurricane came through in like 2004 or 5, basically, it like the house he was renting got damaged and it pretty much destroyed everything.
Dang.
So there's hardly any evidence of the old DJ days. But I did find some old mixtapes that I have properly displayed in my office just for good memories.
Yeah.
But man, when I started to really look into your story after I got past the being like angry,
Yeah, a little salty.
then I saw the Ruslan interview. And I'm sure that Ruslan interview did a lot, but there was a lot of controversy at first of Christian Club, right? And you were like the pioneer of this, like actually, making it, become widely spread across social media. You got a lot of flack, I'm assuming. Like, how can you be a Christian club? So, what was like when that first started happening? What did those comments like? Did you just like shake them off? Did it do something? Did you try to spin it in some other way? Well, or did you like, hey, no, this isn't. It's more for like, how to easily explain it. But I guess my question is like, how did that affect you, and what did you do about when people were like criticizing the Joyful Noize?
Yeah, the criticism was great. That's how I looked at it. I enjoyed the criticism. It was a part of the game. Like being able to take on a opposing opinion of something is just natural when you're doing something revolutionary. From what I've seen with most people that's changed the trajectory of history, they dealt with backlash from the people closest to them. So luckily, there's been enough pioneers for me to look at and see like, okay, this is what comes with it. And the things that I had to think about was, what does the Bible say about everything that I'm doing? And when I dealt with criticism from the people closest to me, that's where that started. So like you mentioned earlier, like growing up was always getting a real job, starting your family, having a decent income, have your 401k in place, preparing for the future. And as much as that sounded good, like I just asked them like, where does DJing fall into that? And nobody could really conceptualize like being a full-time DJ where I was living. I was in Virginia, and everything's based on, the culture around you. So Virginia was military, school systems, raise a family, stuff like that. I moved to DMV, it's corporate, get into real estate or do some tech stuff. But again, for me, I was just like, man, there's something about this music and my reach to the kids and the community around me that I just can't escape. One, I just knew I had a gift with what I do with DJing and trying to explain to people what I see myself doing. I had to come to grips that it just doesn't make sense to them because they're seeing it from their world. Mm-hmm. And I knew that the people closest to me that was giving me this criticism, I had to come to the grips that they're doing it because they love me. They want the best for me, and they want to protect me. Even if they don't know the right answer, they want to take care of me. But I had to be able to accept that, but still reject some of their input because I saw in the word what I was called to do. And when I got that feedback, that criticism, I just learned, I started training myself like, don't get mad at them. Develop a deep conviction where, okay, if there are spiritual figures in your life and they follow God's word, your conviction in the word should be so deep that you can actually convince them, not in a manipulative way, but in, like Paul says, persuasive, like let them know like, nah, this is good. This is for the kingdom. So this is before anything took off, but I was training myself in how to think, how to receive criticism, and how to push forward even when things didn't make sense. And when it got to the point, I was living on my car, 2019. I was living in my car 2019, doing pop-up shows with my dog Trey Gad and Swayze and K9. We was doing these pop-up shows. I was using the little money I made from my Lyft drive to do these shows, and I was still doing youth ministry. So you can imagine the parents in Maryland, DMV area, they got this homeless guy mentoring their kids. But the thing that they wrestled with was he really does love our kids and he serves them well. But I don't agree with his lifestyle, but he really does love the Lord and he really does care about these kids. And that was a moment where I found more confidence in my life and my decisions and knew that, hey, if I serve the people and meet the needs and I go after what God has called me to do, like after a while, they're going to get it. And if they don't get it, I'm still going to have faith that after a while, they're going to get it. So fast forward to when I started getting all this criticism from randoms that don't know me. I'm like, y'all don't know me. But when y'all get to know me, y'all going to know. Like, this is the real deal. And I've had testimonies already of people that started as critics and they hated what I was doing and they actually came out. There's one guy specifically that was sending, it was like a routine hate comment. Like he'd wake up, well, I don't know what he was doing. He's cool now, but this is what I used to say. They wake up, drink their coffee, set their calendar, pop out the laptop and start throwing out some hate. This guy, he would pop up so much. I knew his name, his profile pic, everything. And he went from talking about it to, I started seeing the emojis change to like applause and strong arms. And I'm like, okay. And lo and behold, you know, it was a moment where he was sending out like criticism, but one of my like lines that if somebody crosses, I have to address it is if they give out like a legit false narrative. Like if they say they don't like it, it's demonic, like that's their opinion. But this person specifically said, oh, I talked to the owners, they were prideful, they're this, that, and the third. And I'm like, all right, you're saying like, you're giving out a story, like details. So I had to address him and say, hey, you know, in gentleness, like, hey, bro, appreciate your perspective. Just want to be honest, we haven't talked. You know, we can DM and have a conversation. And that, he says now, that actually, like, gave him a reality check, like, oh, this is a real person. Mm-hmm. And he actually ain't taking my shade, like, in the way I expected him. He's just accepting it, and he's wanting to actually talk. That convicted him. He disappeared for a minute. And when he came back, that's when he started encouraging me. And he came out to an event I did and said, hey, from man to man, I want to apologize. And I want to sow into your ministry and support you. I brought my son just to show him how to repent, how to apologize and own up to your mistakes. And it went from there. That moment, after that, I was like, I don't care what anybody says. Like, if they don't really know what's going on, like, yeah, run up my algorithm, boost up my comments, go from there. But when y'all talk to me, y'all gonna hear the real. So, yeah.
Man, that's phenomenal. Like that's such wisdom, and coming from the Lord, you disarmed a guy, and then for you guys to connect, for him to repent, and show that example to his son. That's amazing. So, the movement has taken off a little bit. There's elements of Christian clubs in a lot of the bigger cities. Nashville has the Cove. I've been to that one when I went to Holy Smoke.
Right.
We have some people in Jacksonville who, do something on a semi-regular basis. But you're like the OG. Right? And
That's a trip, right?
You've branded Joyful Noize. I'm going to kind of shift this conversation to like business. Man, you got a phenomenal business mind.
Thank you.
So how did the branding come? You got it's branding. Branding is basically the colors, the font, the event itself. There's a certain flow to it.
Yeah.
How did all that come about?
Man, it was a slow build, but I feel like for me, I just been nerding out. I love business just as much as I love music, and you can relate to that. It's like a game. Like you wanna just learn, the different combinations and skill sets and bring it all together and see it come to life. So I mean, since I went to school for business administration, that was my first kind of introduction to just business in general. And another small note, like the Bay Area, we're just known for being like entrepreneurs. I don't know, just when you look at guys like LaRussell, E40, like when it comes to creative entrepreneurship, like the pioneers are there. So some of it is in me. But as far as Joyful Noize and how it developed, I think for me, I've just been studying different influential people through YouTube. I've bought into some courses. I started with like, what does it take to make a viral video? And I was studying the elements of that, like knowing that people have short-term attention spans. They need things to remember. The mental real estate that people have is smaller than we think. Not saying that they're small-minded, but we consume so much in a day. And I learned that mastery comes with simplicity. So if you're able to master something, it should be able to be explained to the most simple-minded person and make sense. So all that being said, when it came to like recognizing what is catching on from the Christian parties and clubs and gatherings, I was just like, okay, what is the essence of the party that makes people want to come? It's the community. What is the thing that they all share that brings them together? It's the music. And then from there, it's kind of like, that's for you to create, but, what are the things that they can get behind and support that helps become their own? So all those things was coming into my mind, like, what can I create that help people get behind and get excited about? And I already knew that within the Christian culture, a lot of the events were, and this isn't a bad thing, it's just the common thing. So I want to make sure that's clear. Most events was hosted by churches, youth ministers, pastors. And as much as their heart was in the right place, their experience of hosting events wasn't their expertise. They want to get everybody together so they can preach the word. That's what the minister's great at. But as far as the event planning part, like, they're going to give it their best effort. So for me, I was like, in the business mind, it's like an advantage. Like they're gonna actually witness a real time like event curator put together like a thought through event, and the agenda isn't to increase my church attendance. The agenda isn't to, bring people out to raise money for this cause. It's literally just to meet the need of the people. So as far as branding, colors wise, I just was looking for a color. I started thinking about like sports teams, and how much when you look at certain colors, you can already think, oh, yellow and purple, that's the Lakers. Warriors is gold and blue, and I was just thinking like, what's going to be our team colors? And I started looking literally through the NBA teams, like what's a color that the NBA doesn't have, or it's not like a main color. So I just grabbed different colors and was playing with the color wheel until I found the purple, yellow, and blue. I started researching, what does each color symbolize? Does it align with, our values? And we went from there. So You know, yellow symbolizing joy, blue symbolizing calmness and cool, purple symbolizing royalty. I'm just like, and as I started getting different things, I got excited. Joyful Noize, I was referencing the scripture. Everything has to point to something, and there's layers and layers as they dig into it. But man, I can nerd out about it, but I'm curious to see if I'm on the right track.
No, I love it, man. So when you put out the font, you put it out. Did you have earlier iterations, or once you got what we see now on the hat, has it always been that?
Yes. So I'll never forget. I was hanging out with Scooty Wop, which Scooty Wop's the homie, and sometimes, you know, with creatives, well, a lot of times with creatives, our ideas are like fireworks. Like, I remember being at Millennium Mall at a shoe store with Scooty, and I was like, yo, the Martin show had the dopest font ever. Mm-hmm. You know, Martin Lawrence, he had this show, and I wanted to make sure the font represented a certain demographic, which, to be straight up, the black and brown people, you know, and everybody else is all welcome, but I'm just like, what resonates with my people, the black people, you know, and as far as that, I knew that the Martin show was one of my favorite shows growing up. I would watch it with my mom all the time. As soon as I saw that font, I knew what time it was. But so I just looked for that font, and then once I saw that font, I was like, I found it. I just went from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice, man. I love Martin, man. Brother man.
Yeah. Bro, man from the fifth floor,
Yeah.
always popping up.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Classic.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the event itself. So you got a flow. You I'm sure that's evolved. Right. I know you said you originally was thinking like a karaoke night. Did I get traction? Did you actually do a karaoke night?
No, so I did. I wanted to do a karaoke night, but then I wanted to do this thing called a 3-piece where it was a podcast, a performance, and a party. Because I felt like those were all the things that people wanted.
3-piece, I love it.
Yeah, and I did that once. That event actually was before I did the ARC. It was in Broward County, and I did it with some friends that had a photography studio. I was like, I'm gonna see if I can sell 20 tickets, and we went from there. And it went well. Like, I had my dog Big Gucci Dame performing, and I did a podcast with my dog that had a clothing line, actually called Natives. It wasn't HGA Natives, but it was his own Natives. And then I DJ'd at the end, and it was cool. It was crazy. Even though 20 people came out, I posted on TikTok. That mug hit 100,000 likes, and people were like fired up about it. I'm like, for this little event? So it started as that, and then I tried that at the first Joyful Noize event. I had Keon Boone come, which Jacksonville's very own.
Yep. Shout out Keon.
Yeah, it was his first performance as a Christian artist. But I interviewed him, and then I had him and Keith and Tony perform, and then I DJ'd at the end. It was great as far as it being the first, as far as the standard and the bar not being too high because nobody knew what to expect. It was great. But the main feedback I got and how it evolved was everybody was like, we just want to party. Like, we came here to dance. We came here to see you DJ. Because I already built up a little following from my mashups, my Christian mashups, and everybody loved them. So they're like, we just want to hear the mashups, you know? So I was like, man, I still want to show love to the artists, but I do want to meet the needs of the people because they're the ones coming, you know? Yeah. So I said, let me infuse it. And that's when I pretty much coined it the Joyful Noize style, where it's a DJ set, but there's surprise performances in the midst of the set. And that now has kind of became our staple, like, flow.
Yeah. So I'm sure a lot of people want to get down.
Yeah.
Right. I'm sure you get hit up all the time. I was telling you before we started filming, my barber Manny, Imani James, he came to an earlier event with one of his songs. And how do you like prospect people? Because I'm sure there's like artists that are newer that you maybe never seen. You don't really know. Like how do you handle like all the people hitting you up now to be part of your events?
Great question. So I used to do this thing called Tastemaker Tuesdays. It was a live listening session where people would send their music and I would listen to it, give them feedback. And that was a moment where I just discovered there's so many dope artists that the numbers do not reflect, you know, the sound, and it doesn't reflect, you know, who they are as a person either. And that reminded me, like, man, when I, because consider like what songs I'm gonna play. I need to consider who I'm promoting as a person and what's their goal, and does it appeal to this area's sound. So I'm in Florida. If I'm playing, country music, in certain parts of Florida, it's not gonna resonate. If I play Southern if I play like what? So it's just the DJ mind, but I'm just thinking like, what's the style that people's looking for? And I need to understand that most of the audience is pretty much new to Christian hip hop as well that I'm getting. So I'm just thinking when I work through my DJ set, like, does this flow well? Does the music appeal to the audience that I'm trying to reach? When I look at the message behind the lyrics, will people actually resonate with it in this loud, live environment? Is it simple enough for people to catch on? Is the beat hidden? Is the beat something that people gonna get people moving whether they know the song or not? And once I see that all those check out, then I hit up the artist. I don't just play any song. Like I hit them up, especially if they have a smaller platform. It's easier to reach them. But I just reach out and say, hey, like, I love your music. Tell me more about yourself. That's how I got in touch with Keon, because I was like, I love his music. He's killing it. And as I talked to him, I was like, dang, now I really love just you as a person. And I'm excited because I know that you're going to go far because I'm talking to you now. So I built that relationship. And then if it lines up, like they live close or they're willing to travel and the song is really fitting for that theme or that event, then we make it happen. It's really not based on size or numbers. If they do have a bigger name, bigger number of followers and all that, we'll work it out to make it mutually beneficial. But a lot of times, because there's not a lot of opportunities like this, artists just pull up. They're ready to support. So yeah, that's a little process.
No, that's amazing, man, that you're actually giving, because you got a large platform, mm-hmm. and then you're actually reaching out to people, mm-hmm. and making that connection. So that's what I love about you. Is like you seem to be someone who just wants to give, right? Mm-hmm. That's that personality. That's like the vibe I get, and that's I just love people like that. You're not looking for something mm-hmm. in return, because you kind of meet people like that in the industry. You're like, mm-hmm. and he seems like a real good guy, and you get to know him. Like, he's definitely trying to get something from me. Where he's thinking we all just love the Lord, and we just want to be there for each other, and open up a door if we can.
Hey, I have those moments too, though. Like I mean, as a Christian, you feel me? We deal with life circumstances, and I've learned to have a lot of grace on people in the industry in general, but but people, cause we be strapped for cash, and that's why I was telling E about this earlier when we set up. I'm like, a lot of times, the reality is we ain't got no money, and we're trying to make it. We're trying to get out of our situation. And that's why Jesus talks about money so much, because he knew that, man, when you're struggling and you're trying to just make ends meet, you start cutting a few corners, and then if it works, then you kind of snowball into something. So I know that there's artists that I've seen artists start one way where their heart's not in the right place because they're just trying to make it, they're trying to get out, and then they humble out as they finally get it and realize, dang, I don't deserve this. And then you have people on the opposite end where they've been humble the whole time, and then things start shifting in their circumstances and they shift. But I've been there. Like when I was living in my car, as much as I was still hosting those events with my friends, in my head I'm just like my heart was wrestling. Like it was right there. Like, nah, raise the price just a little bit. Charge this artist to perform. You can make a few more dollars. So I just wanted to say that because I know that like the industry is tough, like, and it's pretty much just a pool of people that are dealing with life circumstances in real time, and then they're getting paid for their words. So they can choose to say what everybody wants them to hear or say how they really feel. And a lot of times people, because the people are paying them, they're going to say what they want to hear even when they're struggling. Mm-hmm. So I really pray for a lot of these people, man, and it's tough to see, but I appreciate that because, I talk with God, we all talk to God, but my conversations with God, especially when I was just on the bottom of this, trying to figure it out, I was like, man, as you elevate my platform, like, just keep me in this humble state, and may my hands always be open. Mm-hmm. Because I learned, like, if your hands are open, like, you leave room to receive, and also give. But if you start closing and just holding on, one, you can't give and you limit yourself from receiving. So that's been huge in my heart, and I've seen so much fruit from that already. So I'm like, why switch? You feel me?
Yeah. All right, good. This is 3 things I want you to speak on. So
Yeah.
you don't only put artists down, but you put other DJs down.
Yes.
And then let's talk about the dance element. Like you're an entertainer.
Yeah, yeah.
You're not just DJing. You're like entertaining.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you have a huge worship component to it. Talk through all 3 of those things.
Yes, yes. So just tying into my backstory, as I love to party, as I love to celebrate, I didn't start off as a DJ. I didn't start off too wrapped up in the technical parts of DJing. I just wanted music to play at my parties. So I would literally play a song and go back to partying. And in the Bay, like, we was dancing, like turf, like taking up room on the floor. Like, we was in there, you know, sliding across the floor, doing our moves. Like, I was a part of all that. My brother used to show me all the dance moves, and I just will always want to do that. So I really loved dancing. I secretly wanted to be a dancer, and I used to watch all the dance videos and learn them. But then as I started DJing more, I fell in love with DJing. So I have both of those elements a part of me, and I have an appreciation for the dance culture just as much as I have an appreciation for the DJ world. Both of them were cultures and worlds I didn't know about, and then as I got more involved, I was like, yo, this is cool. Like for dance, I saw Yak Films, which was based in the Bay Area, but they were just a YouTube page that would broadcast all dance styles across the world, and I was just like, this is so cool. Like, this is what they listen to in Korea, this is what they listen to in Africa, this is what they listen to. So I was just in love with that. And then with DJing, I saw the Get Down, and that really opened my mind to like, dang, like hip hop and DJ, like hip hop started with DJs. Like, I didn't know that. And seeing like the story of Kool Herc and how you bring the big speakers to the community center and throw the back to school party, like that was how hip hop started. I was like, we need to bring that back in a gospel. We need to baptize that and bring it back, because the revolution of hip hop and the evolution of it is just so intriguing. And I just started digging into it, and I'm just like, man, this is so biblical in a way. Like, as much as it, you know, obviously was influenced by the world, there's so many parallels to it. And I was like, man, how can we bring this to what we're doing? So I think for me, like, because I appreciate, you know, just the history of hip hop and the culture of dance, I naturally want to keep that involved in my events. Like, I even tell people, because they're like, yeah, you could do this big production, but I'm like, nah, like, it has to feel almost imperfect, you know. It has to feel natural. It has to feel like we're in somebody's backyard. That's hip hop, you feel me? Like, they was in the community center turning up. So for me to start it in a photography studio with a garage, it was like a back lot. You couldn't even fit in it. It was hot, and it was so imperfect, but it was so amazing at the same time, because everybody felt welcome. And people that felt that they were higher than this had to humble themselves. So I always want to keep that element with what I do. And because I know, as I've talked to dancers and DJs, there's not enough spaces for them, I'm like, well, let's make sure this is a space for you, no matter where it goes. So, yeah.
What's the worship element?
Yes.
So that's always been a part of it.
Yes.
Is that, do you close out your set with the worship, or you kind of integrate it, you know, midway through, or?
Yeah.
Like,
so I usually close it out with like a slower worshipful song. Like, obviously, I'm if you see some clips, I'm playing praise songs in the midst of it, because another thing is I don't limit myself to hip hop. I'm more of I'll say open format DJ. Like, I play all genres and I bring them all together. So I'll play like Christian contemporary songs in the middle of it that might be more up tempo, but usually at the end is when I slow it down. But it depends, because when I did the block party this past weekend, which, shout out to Mayor Jackie Espinosa, that was epic, still processing it. In the beginning, we still had some like sound stuff to work out. So I was like, let's play some worship, because this is still public space and this would be powerful to just set our hearts. And it was early morning, so I was like, I could start this one with worship, slow it down, turn them up, and then land them again with some worship. So I'm just kind of like loving the ending being that, because it helps us minister the gospel, because we do give an opportunity for people to give their life to Jesus still in the midst of the party. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. No, I love, like, even when I used to DJ secularly, I was like open format, and I'd just be blowing people's mind when I'd just be mixing like Daft Punk, Biggie, NSYNC, and just like people just feeling it because they're not like expecting like, there would be times where I'm like, because I'm a true hip hop guy, where I'd just be like hip hop, I'm like, all right, man, people want to hear something different. Then when I learn how to open my mind up to other things, then I would just be like hitting it, like, and I'm not a dancer by any means, but my goal was just to have people to have a good time. And I'll just kind of button up my DJing. So when I said I retired from DJing, that's just where I was in my life when I graduated college in 2001. But then the Lord called me back into doing something with Christian hip hop as I got exposed to Lecrae, Andy Mineo, Social Club. Those were like the first guys I was listening to. And then I just started to connect with my community in Jacksonville, finding Christian hip hop DJs, finding the artist, and like the Lord just put it on me where I used the word curator as well, because I'm not really I do DJ, but I don't want to be known as a DJ.
Get you.
I also run a couple companies. That's like my main thing that pays the bills. But just the Lord put it on me to use Christian hip hop to bring people together, and there's something beautiful that happens when the gospel is shared there. So you do your events, and you're just meeting a need, right? Because Jesus met people's needs one way. He fed them, fed people. Obviously gave them the gospel to save their soul. But young people, they want a fellowship. They want to be around, and there was like really no spaces for it.
Facts.
And you just listening to the Lord. Using your business background as well, and you bring people together for an event that is glorifying to the Lord. I mean, what better thing is there out there to fill a need and to minister to the young to like the younger people? And I say this a lot in Jacksonville, because I know a lot of pastors that I met with. Some had record labels back in the day. Some were artists, and I feel like there's a the youth groups are really strong. Got a lot of great churches. But man, once they graduate out of the youth groups, there's really nothing for them, at least in my city. Or at least,
it's common everywhere.
And just trying to find opportunities. That's why I do events. Like I put events on because the Lord's like put it on me to bring. I try to bring the OGs out. I try to connect them with the younger artist, and for lots of reasons. One, just fellowship with each other, also to bring the wisdom from the people who are like 10 to 15 years ahead, but then also to for us to connect with the community, to share the gospel message.
Definitely.
And what's cool is like, because you've been doing it, and you've seen guys, you mentioned Caleb, Alex, Gene, Keon, like before they and they're still ascending like crazy right now. But you knew these guys when they were just like making their first things. Like you were like, with them when they were like, recording music and stuff like that. Like tell me about some of those guys that you've, got to know in that way.
No, it's an honor. So I'll bridge two things together. Like I did youth ministry for 7 to 8 years, which if y'all don't know, like, I mean, I'm 32. I got some years in the game. I ain't there yet, but time will come. But serving the youth, I saw that like shout out to all my youth pastors. Y'all know if a teen is hungry, it don't matter what you're doing, they want to eat. Like, or if they want to hang out with their friends, like they're so like one track minded, if their needs aren't met, it's really hard to bring them to what like they really need. Like it's hard. Like we try to do Bible studies with some of these teens, man, and if they're really not there mentally because of whatever's going on in their home or their friends, like they're being bullied, like it's tough. It's tough. But once you're able to meet that need, they're tuned in. They're able to listen a little more. And I always just reminded myself like we're no different. We're as much as we have years in the game. We're just as childlike. We're just as pure hearted. Like there's still parts of us that just are like kids, So I just remembered that like needs have to be met. Like if you want to bring the gospel, like, and then I looked at the gospel and Jesus is feeding the 5,000 because they're hungry, and the fact that he had the compassion to do that it'll be foolish to say, oh yeah, he fed them, but no, I'm good. You know, they just need to hear the gospel. You know, they just need to repent. It's like Jesus didn't even do that. He would meet them right where they're at. Yeah, for the leper, he would embrace them, give them an opportunity to be touched. The woman that was bleeding, he gave her opportunity to speak up. Like, he just set the environment for great things to happen. Like, Jesus was a curator. Like, Jesus would like bring all these things together for people to discover the kingdom. And it's such a beautiful way of teaching that I've learned to take on as well for what I do. And I see it with these events now in real time where, man, like, even for the artists, like, they're still Christians. A lot of them are young Christians. A lot of them just gave their life to Christ. And I started realizing when I met Caleb, Alex, and even now with Keon, like, they were the same age. And this is not sunning them in no weird way. Like, they're my homies, like, eye to eye. But when I met them, I was like, dang, they're the same age as some of my teens that I was mentoring. And I was like, dang, it's getting real. But it was like the formula is the same. Like, I learned a lot from my teens because I was like, man, like, there's still so much happening in the world. Things are happening fast. So if I'm not listening to them, like, I'm missing out. Like, they're telling me, like, when I first met Caleb, you know, we was on Instagram Live. He was just hopping on people's lives and performing, like, without them asking. You just hop on the live, like, hey, I'm Caleb Gordon. I got a song called West Orlando Flow. And everybody from his live, it would be like 5-10 people would be on this live, like, spamming the comments. Like, that's how I met Caleb. And one time, you know, in one of the lives, he was just like, you know, I'm trying to do a show. And I was like, I know how to do shows. You know, I'm doing shows with my homies in Maryland. At this time, which I didn't talk about this, I had a real estate license and I was doing real estate. So my page was flat out a real estate page. Mm-hmm. It said Bryce the Realtor. So he was just like, what do you mean? Like, you know, help me with shows. Like, who are you? But when we talked, you know, I shared my story and then I heard him kind of the same routine I had, like I talk about now. Like, you know, I wanted to hear his heart and I saw that this man was on a mission. He's read a few books. You know, he made a big decision to follow God and surrender his music. And he was like, I'm going for it, whether my friends like it or not. And I was like, I like that. And one of my other convictions that I had with music was based off of Jonathan and the Armor Bearer, where Jonathan had the crazy idea because the army was just sitting under the tree not doing anything. So he's like, we're gonna go and see what God got for us. So him and the Armor Bearer had this crazy idea of fighting the enemies with one sword, and he's just like, let's do it. And the Armor Bearer is just like, I got your back. I'm with you, heart and soul. And ever since I seen that passage, I was like, I want that heart, that Armor Bearer heart. Like, you got a crazy idea? It's just, if it's for God, I'm here. So Caleb had a crazy idea. He wanted to go on tour with one viral song. It didn't work out. We tried to do the tour. He only sold a few tickets, and we quietly just went back to the drawing board. But he was just like, yo, if you want to, like, pull up, you know, and do a show, like, let's do it. And at that time, I lived in Maryland. I flew out to Orlando, did a show with him, and that's when I met Alex, TJ, Golden Goose, which is now Burks. I met all these guys who are now, like, popping. They were in their early stages, and they were all together. And me as a DJ, Kenny Rivers too, as a DJ, I'm like, yo, this is perfect. I can build with these guys. I can push their music. And I see that the audience loves it. There's a community around it. Like, I saw what's happening now with Joyful Noize. I saw it 2021 when I just saw all these people fired up for God. And I was like, I'm moving out here. I ain't had no money, no nothing. They could talk about it. I moved out here with nothing. I ain't have a car. I ain't have a place to stay. I figured it out as soon as I landed. And it's been beautiful just to witness their journey. Like, Caleb is, to give, like, sports comparisons, Caleb's like the Kobe Bryant, like the Mamba mentality, like, whatever it takes, he's going to learn it and he's going to figure it out. Mm-hmm. If he messes up or if it doesn't work out, he's going to go back to the drawing board, learn from the greats and do it again. Alex was like the LeBron, like, he was already ridiculously musically talented. He just needed to grow into his, like, gift, which after, like, being around us as a group, it was a lot of accountability, a lot of, like, hard conversations. Alex, like, clicked and he really started seeking Jesus and seeking the kingdom. And once he started, like, building his conviction, his music, like, surprisingly took off. But it was really just like, oh, he got right with God first. So same thing with Kenny. Kenny was fired up. He's a revolutionary doing, Christian dembal, reggaeton, like stuff for the Latin community where, like, if y'all know, like within the Latin community to do something like against the culture or what's common in Christianity, you're gonna get criticized. So he was the first one that was facing all the backlash, but he was determined. So I just saw a bunch of people like, that was fired up for what God has called them to do, and they're willing to do whatever it took. And I really appreciate them. I'm really, really grateful because I was feeling like an outcast when I was in all these different cities because I had these crazy ideas. And then I found a bunch of other people with crazy ideas, and I felt right at home. So environment is huge, community is huge, because once we all got together, it became this thing. Like the Florida boys is out here running around, like that kind of became the thing. Caleb and I was performing in the street. Alex is on the guitar. Kenny's, partying with us. We're just doing all this stuff. So it really made a big difference for my journey. And even with the Christian club, I had some reserves about it. And they're like, man, you better go for it, man. Like they was giving me that push, like don't stop now. This is what you worked for. So I really credit a lot of things to them. And how
It's
God
amazing how like God puts those people in your life.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like your circle, everyone is like going for it, and that's amazing to have that circle. Man, I got some like rapid fire questions for you.
Go for it.
All right. So what's your favorite worship song to like mix? Like what's your favorite mashup?
Man, the Firm Foundation, All the Lights mashup is probably one of my best ones. It gives me goosebumps every time I play it. It turns the crowd up every time I play it. So yeah, Firm Foundation, Mav City with the Kanye West, All the Lights. Y'all probably seen a viral clip of it. If you haven't, tap in. But yeah, that one.
What's the craziest thing that's ever happened to you in the booth, DJ booth?
Craziest thing in the DJ booth. Man, I feel like there's crazy as far as I think one of my craziest setups that I always try to remind people. My first DJ gig was in campus ministry, and I didn't have a table. I DJ'd on the floor. The board was on the floor, and I was standing up, partying with people, and I would blend on the floor, like crouch down, blend on. That was probably one, and that was the start to my DJ life. So it was one of the craziest but like best setups to help me realize like symbolically that's where you gotta be, like humble and serving the people. As far as crazy though, like another thing, the first Joyful Noize event, which I'll say this before this. The lady attending, she's okay now. But we had a medical emergency at our first Joyful Noize event. And out of 10 years of DJing, I've done tons of events. I've never had a medical emergency. She had an epileptic seizure as soon as Keon came out. And it was something where we couldn't have made the best, but it was just like crazy timing. But she had a condition that when she got excited, she would get seizures. But you add the heat of the crowd, and you add the we didn't have a lot of lights either. So it was just like the excitement, the heat. She started having a seizure, and we were just like, whoa. We got into formation. Our volunteers helped, and she was aided. But the beginning of Joyful Noize started with the ambulance coming, carting some lady out in the middle of the party. And I was like, yep, this is beginning of the end. But we are still here. So, yes, that was probably one of the craziest situations.
Last one. What artist or pastor you want to collaborate with that you haven't done so already?
Artist or pastor? That's a good question. I feel like I've locked in with all the people that I want to. I think it's definitely been on my mind to have Hovey at a Joyful Noize. Because that's my dog. Like, I've done some shows with him, and I know that people would appreciate it. Let's see. Yeah, having Miles out here is going to be a blessing. Like, if that can happen. Because we're from the Bay Area. We know what it takes. Being revolutionaries out there for the gospel is refreshing. And I seen him 2019, too, when he was performing at the Rapzilla festival, and I was like, finally, my homies back home can hear the gospel too. And sure enough now, as his platform has grown and he's been rolling loud, I have some of my friends sending them and stuff. So having Miles at a Joyful Noize would be fire. Pastor wise, Jerry Flowers, I feel like he's my wife listens to him all the time. Like, he's changed our household tremendously just with a lot of his sermon series. So to have him come out, minister to the people would be a beautiful opportunity, because I feel like he gets it. Like, he's down to earth, but he's concrete in his convictions. So yeah, I would say Hovey, Miles Minnick, Jerry Flowers. That would be some good combinations, and maybe a Anthony Phillip with Jay Monty, because Jay Monty goes to Anthony's church. So I'm like, if we was able to do something with 2819, I think that's the name. See, I don't even know their church like that, the name, but I just know that they're making big impact. But that would be a blessing.
Yeah, that'd be dope.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Psalm 100.
Yeah.
So is that like the verse that the Lord put on you? That, I'm assuming that's a David psalm.
Mm-hmm.
I just pulled it up here. So like verse 1 of 100. Make a loud shout to Yahweh, all the earth. Serve Yahweh with gladness. Come before him with joyful songs. Know that Yahweh, he is God. It is he who has made us, and not we ourselves. We are his people and the sheep of his pasture. Mm-hmm. What does that psalm mean to you?
It's the pretty much the mission statement for what we do. It's the visual representation of what you should see at Joyful Noize. People making a joyful noise to the Lord, all the earth. So all demographics, black, white, brown, yellow, everybody making a joyful noise. Coming into his presence, acknowledging that it's him, acknowledging that he's God, that we are the sheep of his pasture. Serving with gladness, serving the Lord with gladness. So from our volunteers to our team, like, you should see everybody in a heart of joy and servitude. And then it also talks about, that the Lord is faithful and will continue through all generations. So even though it's a Christian club, because it's Christian, it's a full family event. So we have my 70-year-old auntie who's been there, and we have my friend's 3-year-old son named Blaze. I think he's 3 now. He's grown up, but this little kid. They like literally. I think it was a June event, but you could literally see my aunt here, 70, jumping, having a good time, and you see the 3-year-old on a subwoofer jumping right next to him, and they vibing. And I'm literally seeing kids like grow up in this culture. Like, one of my homies who comes out, like, he was this little kid. Now he's in there dancing in the middle. He's learned all these dances.
Praise God, man.
And I'm just like, yeah. So that's the full display of what we're doing.
What a great culture for like kids to be in. Like, there's so many things that of the world that is not edifying to the Lord, and for you to create the space to bring 7 generations, 7 decades apart, together for an event, man. It's amazing,
dude. And that made me just think about my first club experience growing up. Was a teen club in Vallejo, California, and we saw somebody get shot right in front of us. Me and my homies, we was in there. We was like, "This is what y'all go to the club to do." Everybody was just standing around. It stank. It just didn't feel. It just felt dark. And then a fight broke out, and somebody got shot. We ran. We hopped in our car, and before we hopped in the car, we discovered the car got broken into. So my homie's car got broken into, windows shattered, CD player taken out. That was my first club experience. And
the Lord is telling you something,
man. And then from there, it continued on. Like, I witnessed some crazy stuff in the secular world, and I'm just like, for these kids to say, man, my first time partying, I was with all these believers, I was with the big artists, and it's really a healing that has happened for me and people that have witnessed and told me, like, man, this actually brings healing to me, because when I think of nightlife or parties, all I have is these like memories of these crazy things happening. But now they can say, no, I've had fun in a pure way. So yeah, it's special. It's special to witness.
What's next for Joyful Noize? I know you and your wife, your beautiful bride, expecting your first child here, coming up pretty soon. I think you got one more event before you take a short hiatus.
Yeah.
And then you got a bunch of great things happening at the end of the year. So what's next for Joyful Noize?
Man, we just serving where we're called. We got our May 31st event, which is pretty much the typical big Joyful Noize layout. But I've been doing a lot more collaboration events. Last year I was just focused, just learning the infrastructure. But this year I feel like I've gotten to the place where I can enhance other events. So as mentioned, I did the event with the mayor, but I got other events with actual government officials. I got events with some dope people that are influential in the community. Man, I know that we might have something in the works. I ain't gonna talk about any more details, but like really enhancing all the other events. You know, the baby's coming in the summer, so we're gonna take a little break. But you know, right from the break, we'll be at Sarah Jake's conference, Woman Evolve, serving the teen girls there, and yeah, there's a lot of great things happening that I can't even talk about yet, but I look forward to sharing it with the community.
Awesome. Well, tell people where they find that information, online, website, social media handles. How can they get in touch?
Yes, all things The Joyful Noize. You'll see that with the Z, don't forget it. You can go to the website, you can go to the Instagram, Facebook been popping, TikTok is there, YouTube will be rolling out more mixes soon, but yeah, all things The Joyful Noize. I guarantee if you Google it, you chat GPT it, you're gonna have all the information you need, so yeah.
There you go. DJ Scott Free, DJ Bryce G. This is the Free Factor Podcast. Like, subscribe, share it, all that good stuff. Until next time, peace and love.
Yes, indeed.
Real interviews, real guests, no actors. Real talk, get prepared for Free Factor.